So this is when we're going to get the cast of Walking Dead. And the phrase zombie nouns is one that Helen Sword, who's a real good writer about writing, talks about. And she wrote this column in the New York Times in which she writes this, Mr. Lewis.
Take an adjective or a verb or even another noun and add a suffix like itty, shun, or ism. You've created a new noun. Implacability, calibration, cronyism. Sounds impressive, right? I call these zombie nouns because they cannibalize active verbs, suck the lifeblood from adjectives, and substitute abstract entities for human beings.
So then she gives you an example of these zombie nouns. And you want to try and read this for us? It's going to be tough to get through, but it's how people write.
The proliferation of nominalizations in a discursive formation may be an indication of a tendency toward pomposity and abstraction.
All those zombie nouns. Search in your writing for words that end in ION. Search for your writing that end in MENT. Search for verbs that you've somehow created or transformed into nouns because you thought it sounded smart. These are zombies. Search out the zombies and try to kill them. And we're going to show you that this is the bad version, this is the better version. Mr. Lewis?
Writers who overload their sentences with nominalizations tend to sound pompous and abstract.
And so she rewrote that sentence by doing something really important, finding a subject, putting a person back in that sentence. In the first one, there's only abstract nouns. In the second one, we know the person doing it. So we can get this, again, by turning to Joe Williams' book, because he shows us how to do it. And so he writes this bad sentence, Mr. Lewis.
Determination of policy occurs at the presidential level.
Zombie. ION. How do we get rid of the zombie?
The president determines policy.
So you take that noun, you switch it back to a verb. And here's the wonderful thing. If you can recognize zombie nouns, you can do something amazing. Get rid of clutter. All of those extra words disappear if you can make that switch. Another example, Mr. Lewis.
The intention of the IRS is to audit the record of the program.
Zombie. How do we get rid of it?
The IRS intends to audit the records of the program.
And again, getting rid of clutter. Not as much in this one, but super, super important, super, super helpful to your readers. And I'm sorry to say, zombie nouns proliferate at the University of Michigan. This is an example of student writing. I'll read it for you. First, the procedures must promote accurate, efficient, and acceptable outcomes, thereby protecting the applicants who most need protection. Second, procedures must acknowledge the traumatic experiences of worthy applicants and facilitate their full participation, avoiding needless re-traumatization of applicants. You have all written these sentences. This is how you sound. Zombie nouns. All over the place. I don't know what's going on. How do we correct? First, the procedures must promote accurate, efficient, and acceptable outcomes so they can protect. Get subjects into your sentences. Get people doing things. The applicants who most need to be protected. So that they talks about that first procedure. It takes a lot of thought to rewrite these things. Keep on going. The applicants who most need to be protected. So this is kind of tricky. What we said is we want to get rid of clutter, and what we did is add in words. We might take those additional words for clarity's sake. As I said, always a cost-benefit analysis. I'm not saying you always have to turn any zombie noun into something else, but just know that you can and realize what the effects will be. Other quick ones. Facilitate, help. Facilitate their full participation, help them fully participate. And then this last one, avoid needless re-traumatization of applicants. This will avoid needlessly re-traumatizing applicants. Another one, this is really terrible, but again, I will give you a tool to do it. A motion for summary judgment should not be denied upon the bald assertion by the plaintiff in conclusory terms that further discovery was necessary without explaining what further discovery was necessary and absent an explanation as to how such further discovery would overcome the legal insufficiency of cause of action. What does that even mean? That's terrible. And so we're not going to go line by line with it, but I want to show you a pretty good trick, at least with that first sentence. A court should not deny a motion for summary judgment simply because a plaintiff validly asserts in conclusory terms that he requires further discovery. The plaintiff must explain why he requires further discovery and how such discovery would overcome the legal insufficiency of the cause of action. The important move there, a motion for summary judgment in the beginning, tell me as the court what I should do. Put a person in that. Make it active. Also, upon the bald assertion by the plaintiff, because a plaintiff baldly asserts, and then perhaps the most important thing to take from this edit, the period. Mr. Jordan, read that for us.
The period is the most underused punctuation mark.
It is. Use more periods. Give us a chance to get through your thoughts. You just go and go and go. Think about what it will be like on the other end. So that brings us to Samuel Johnson. So Samuel Johnson is this great 18th century literary critic, and he once said this, Mr. Jordan.
This is one of the disadvantages of wine. It makes you mistake words for thoughts.
Which we can modify to our experience.
This is one of the disadvantages of law school. It makes you mistake words for thoughts.
It does. We read that writing and we think we're actually saying something. No, we're just using words. Our final words to write by, Mr. Jordan.
Trying to sound smart is a pretty dumb strategy.
It really is, because if you're writing to judges, none of them are going to say, you know what, I'm just not smart enough to understand Mr. Jordan's paragraphs. What they're going to say is, Mr. Jordan's not smart enough to create a paragraph that I can understand. Another way to think about this is this. When you're writing, Mr. Jordan,
Don't try to sound like a lawyer. Instead, try to sound like a person who knows a lot about the law.
because readers, we really like people, we don't like zombies. Have a good